Today on The View from a Pew, we talk with Doug Gross with your special guest host, Tom Coates.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here.
Let's get it started in here.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 855-244-0077. That's 855-244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
Well, it's not J. Michael
You look just
McCoy.
like him.
Yes, without the white hair and the beard, yes. Ladies and
Oh,
gentlemen,
you're much better looking, Tom.
J. Michael McCoy is not in the house today. I know there'll be some disappointments with that. Mac's a great guy and a tremendous host, but he called me midday today, and he had thrown his back out and was in a lot of pain. So he is not in the house. This is Tom Coates. Normally, Mac and I do a kind of a joint venture with politics. This is going to be our venture into politics for the week. With me today, ladies and gentlemen, is a friend of mine. In fact, we've done some shows over the years, Doug.
Sure.
Mac, when he years ago was doing his show on 98.3,
Right.
took off for the Dakotas for a week and made the mistake of leaving me in charge.
We tried to take it over.
We took it over.
We almost didn't let him back in the door.
He still talks
we changed
about
the locks.
that. That's right. Still talks about that. We played the Johnny Cash bumper music, and we had a good time.
Oh, that was good. I like to hear that.
He called in and he said, "I heard you're taking over the show, Tom's World Live." No, this is A View from a Pew, 99.3 KTIA, and today our host, you've already heard him talking some, is the prestigious Doug Gross.
Oh, my. Lay it on thick,
Emeritus. He was a local barrister of great renown. Doug, I can tell some of your background. I know besides being a local attorney, you were the chief of staff under Bob Ray and our own now, once again, Governor Terry Branstad. Mm-hmm. You were the Republican nominee for the governor's seat itself back in, that was year what?
2002. It's 10 years now, Tom.
2002. It just seems like yesterday that you were in. And I thought you were the best man for the job. Still think you would have been the much better man than what we had in there for a few years. And certainly anything myself and Dan could have beaten the guy we had in there for 4 years. We couldn't find a use for him at all. But tell the audience a little bit more about yourself. What occupies your time these days? What are you interested in?
Oh, man. Well, obviously, I'm interested in the direction of the country and our community. I think we're really at a critical crossroads, Thomas. I think you believe, and I'm sure many of our listeners understand. Just if you look at the debt issue alone, if we don't do something about our debt in our country, we're just basically resigning our kids, not just our grandkids, but our kids, to a second-class life. And what good parent would ever do that? So I think this is a really, really important election, and I'm really focused on it.
It's a cliche, I suppose, to say that it's the most important election of our lifetimes, but I come to believe that it is. I'm kind of a political junkie, as I know you are, but I tend to believe the cliche this year. I think because of so many factors at play, I think it is arguably the most important election of our lifetime.
Yeah, I believe that, Tom, and I hear it all the time, too, but this time I can't see in my lifetime where we've had two more stark differences of approach than what we have, at least at the presidential level. Two different roads that we can take. One, to continue down the road that Obama has laid out, which is increasing the size of government, increasing the reach of government, increasing the debt of government, versus a business-like approach, I think, that Mitt Romney's laid out, where he clearly wants to solve and make major reforms in how our government runs and functions and reduce our nation's debt. So I think we have a very stark choice in front of us. And frankly, today, I'd have to tell you, Tom, I'm very optimistic about the chances for our country.
I'm increasingly optimistic, too. I had said for many months, wait till the debates. People come up and say, oh, we're beating the polls. I said, wait till the debates. To me, even before, but definitely now, it lays out very much as 1980. And for the audience, not for you, Doug, but just kind of as a backdrop of what I think is going on here. In 1980, we had obviously a failed president under Jimmy Carter. Economy was terrible. We had high inflation rates at that point, high interest rates. We've got we had problems in the Middle East, much of what Jimmy Carter himself was responsible for. Violence, our hostages being taken, held hostage in Iran. Much of, in fact, the last time we had an ambassador murdered was under Jimmy Carter. There's a lot of similarities, and yet, even up until that point, Jimmy Carter was leading all the polls.
He was, right till the end.
Yeah, and the debates, I think, swung that.
There was only one debate in that race.
And that debate swung that race to the point. And I think the similarities don't end with what I just said. We had an unpopular president, but he was supported in a very soft fashion by many Americans who didn't like the economy, didn't like the stuff going on in the Middle East, didn't like much of anything that he was doing, but had real doubts about the challenger.
Well, frankly, the Democrats tried to demonize Ronald Reagan.
Exactly.
Did for years, said that, Ronald Reagan, and try to make everyone think he's a warmonger, going to get us into all kinds of wars, irresponsible.
Second-rate actor.
Right, not smart, et cetera, became one of our best presidents in our nation's history. But nevertheless, they did exactly the same, or tried exactly the same thing back then.
And once he was able, in an unfiltered fashion, to present himself to the American people, they could see that this wasn't what they'd been hearing, and the support swung hard the other way. I think the first debate with Romney and Obama was very similar to that.
Oh, I agree.
Do you
I think
agree with my
there was only
assessment?
one actual debate back in '79.
Okay.
I think there's really only effectively one debate this time, and that was the first debate. Because what happened...
Well, you're right to point out it was 79 and not 80. But.
Right. Over the last, 6 months, the Obama campaign was very predictable. What they did is they got out very early and tried to demonize Romney in every way they could during the summer months before he had a chance to raise his own money because he didn't have the nomination yet. And what they did with that is they made people wonder whether or not he was an acceptable alternative. And you're absolutely right, Tom. What happened was that first debate allowed the people of America to take a look at both of them side by side, and hey, Mitt Romney more than held his own. He beat the president like a drum.
That's right.
I mean, he had a clear direction, clear understanding of the issues, a good critique of the president's policies, and summarized the choices very well. Do you want another 4 years of the same thing, or do you want to change a direction? As a result, I don't think this race has ever been the same.
No, it's certainly not. And so that's why I think the 1980 race and the 2012 race are analogous. I'm looking at other years to find similar comparisons, and I don't find anything that fits quite as well as that one.
I think that is very close, almost eerily close, even with the Benghazi and the Tehran similarities that we had back then and we have today. So I absolutely think you're right. I think what's happened here, Tom, is the environment is such where the president simply hasn't done a good job. Fundamentally hasn't done a good job. So when the undecided voters started looking at this race and saying, okay, which way do I want to go? They've already decided they'd like a change in direction. They don't want 4 more years of this. All they needed to do was find that Romney was an acceptable alternative. And allowing him to talk directly to them, unfiltered, as you say, through the debates allowed him, I think, to capture this. I frankly think he's going to win relatively easily.
Well, we'll get to that. But we touched on something that brings me to one of the subjects that I've earmarked that I want to talk about today, and that's the issue of the media. Now, we've touched on the media, and I don't think there's a clearer example of media bias than what we've seen recently with this Libyan situation. And I was disappointed that Romney didn't hit Obama harder in the last debate that was focused on foreign policy. I think I know what he was trying to accomplish, but it was a disappointment to me because he had opportunities. The unanswered question from the audience in the second debate, the no protection when it was asked for a number of times on the compound, and now, of course, we're getting the emails and the things that demonstrate
they knew about it right away.
that they knew at the time, a 7-hour fire firefight, and the SEALs disregarded, the ex-SEALs disregarded and went into the compound to save lives. Apparently killed a lot of the terrorists, saved lives, gave up their own life. One guy was painting the mortar targets with a laser in anticipation of something coming from the skies to take them out. Nothing came from the skies. But
we didn't help them.
No, we didn't help them.
Our president did not help our Navy SEALs who gave their lives for their country. That's just unbelievable.
Can you imagine what would happen if we'd had Bush or any Republican president in there that 4 lives were lost like this? The president not only hardly gives it a hat tip, and then he runs off to Vegas and Comedy Central and other places to do his gig for his campaign, but then lied about some of the things that went on. Can you imagine? We would be seeing front page headlines. I don't think I've seen hardly any mainstream media pick this up at all. Isn't that a disgrace to a country that's a republic that depends on an open and free press to inform the public of what's going on prior to a major election?
I just think of one particular media outlet, the New York Times. New York Times, whether we like it or not, dominates the mainstream media because largely what they say is news, the rest of them pick up. If any other president would have handled this in the same way, I dare say Republican or Democrat, any other president would have handled this way. It had been front page news of the New York Times for weeks, and they've scarcely put it on page 813.
Yeah.
Fox News, frankly, has been the only one that's done the investigation on this story, and not because that they lean right. It's just simply because it is a story. It's journalism, and because our president, our ambassador, got killed on effectively our soil. That's an act of war. And what have we done about it? What have we done about it, other than cover it up?
When they wouldn't let the FBI in for days.
We haven't done anything.
To do a proper investigation.
It's
they
unbelievable.
didn't want to let out what happened.
And to me, I hate to say this, but it's clear that our president played politics with the lives of some Americans. He didn't want this to become a story, so he didn't do anything. He tried to cover it up. And that's just totally unacceptable.
Hillary Clinton steps up and tries to take the blame for it, fall on the sword. To me, this is we always complain. Guys like you and I always complain about the media bias out here. We know it's real.
But not just with regard to Benghazi, Tom. But no. I've seen more media bias this cycle than really almost any.
Exactly.
Take a look at all the polls. And there are more polls than ever. And these polls have impact because particularly people that aren't actually involved and engaged, they're sometimes impacted by momentum or sense of momentum, who's likely to win, who's not. So reporting on polls has impact. It's a story. These mainstream media outlets, including the New York Times, consistently put out polls that overweight Democrats from everywhere from 7 to 8 points. Why? Because what they're doing is they're doing a turnout model that's based upon the 2008 turnout, which was clearly an extraordinary turnout, which will not be replicated. It wasn't anywhere near replicated in 2010 when the whole country turned. So they intentionally do this. So, Tom, the actual raw data they have, I suspect, shows Mitt Romney winning. What they do afterwards, they put the thumb on the scale and they on the Obama side and try to create an impression that Obama's going to win. That's why I think they're wrong.
Well, let's give a couple of particulars here. Let's go back to that 2008 turnout and the demographics there. I saw a piece recently that said typically the black portion of the vote accounts for about 11% of the vote. In that year, they were so excited over the first black president that they turned out 14%. And now the pollsters, many of them, have been using that particular same thing. And the young people,
same way.
They turned out in record numbers.
Hispanics, same way.
Very excited. And I just heard a report today that a college professor was saying, my kids aren't excited about this election at all. 4 years ago, they were really charged up.
Not only that, Tom, not only are they weighting these poll results to bias them by including more turnout than what's actually going to happen among young people, frankly, among Hispanics, among African Americans. But in addition to that, what they don't report is the fact that the president is not going to get the percentage of young people that actually show up.
That's right.
Because, ironically, no groups have been more disaffected by the policies of this administration than the very young people that he thinks are going to come and carry him to victory. He's not going to, and some recent research in Ohio bears this out with the early voting. He's not getting the percentage of young people vote that he thought he would get.
Well, I think you make an excellent point. We're going to go to a break here in just a little bit, and we're going to come back and we're going to have more with our guest, Doug Gross. This is Tom Coates sitting in for Mac McCoy. This is View from a Pew, 90.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Have you ever been told you're not a good enough Christian? Well, we have too. Join the conversation. Call 855-244-0077. Now here's your host, president of the Not a Good Enough Christian Club, J. Michael McCoy.
Well, again, J. Mike, sorry to disappoint. J. Michael McCoy is not in the house, down with a bad back day. Hopefully he'll be back tomorrow for all you listeners of View from a Pew. It's a great show, and this is Tom Coates coming to you on 99.3 KTIA, powered by WebcastOneLive.com. My cutting off in the last break was a little clumsy. I'm not the pro that Mac is. I'm just an aspiring amateur.
But you're authentic.
So
they know
let
that
me
it's
get
real.
that in while I
They know
can.
it's real.
My guest today is a fellow that I think is arguably one of the brightest and most informed political pundits on the right that the state of Iowa has to offer up. Former gubernatorial candidate, he was our flag bearer back in 2002, 10 years ago. Chief of staff under two different governors, very prominent attorney here in town. The Doug Gross is my guest today, and the discussion that we're having is wide-ranging. We've talked about a number of things. We've touched on media. Now, I think we'd be remiss, Doug, to miss the media discussion and the bias that we often complain about and how it's played out this year, and leave out the discussion of our own Des Moines Register. Our own Des Moines Register caused ripples throughout the country that I was still hearing about. I was out in San Diego last week, and I was hearing about this building out there. And
it was a hot topic on the national news shows.
It was. It's not just a local, because, and I was interested to see this in the paper, Doug, we go back 100 years on the Register's endorsements. And back in the early days, they didn't consider a Democrat.
For 60 plus years, the Register was really a clarion for the Republican Party in many respects. Ding Darling, people forget, was a Register cartoonist, was a Republican, served in Republican administrations. So, and it wasn't until about 1960 that they took a turn. But boy, then after Richard Nixon in 1972, they took a hard turn to the left. It's interesting. Rick Green, who's the editor of the Register, one thing people I don't think realize is Rick Green, when he was previous to him being in Des Moines, he was in Palm Springs. And in 2008, the Palm Springs paper was the only Gannett paper that endorsed John McCain. I suspect there aren't many Gannett papers endorsing Romney, but the Des Moines Register did. It was a big deal. And I told Rick this. I said, Rick, you should feel good about this for two reasons. One is you made national news. That's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Two is you're not taken for granted. It's never good for an institution like that to be sort of taken for granted, and they were for years by the Democratic Party, because anything they said, they were right down the line ideologically. And they still are in a lot of things.
Minorities and some of the other groups are taken for granted.
That's the worst thing you can ever do. I've told lots of folks that. Don't ever be taken for granted. Make certain that people actually reflect your views and your issues. But I can't tell you this is going to reflect a change in their policies generally, because there's still lots of policies they have, Tom, that I have big issues with.
Yeah, you and me both.
But nevertheless, they made big waves with this. And what I think it did politically in Iowa is it had to demoralize the Democrats. What people don't understand is one of the reasons why people turned out more in 2008 for Obama than McCain is because people were excited. Some people, anyway, were excited about Obama. And I don't know that you were excited. I know I wasn't excited about John McCain. And so, so the turnout wasn't very good for John McCain.
No,
well, this time it's flipped. The turnout for change, people wanting change, and to some extent after Romney's appearance in the first debate, Republicans are much more excited. Republican-leaning people are much more excited about this race than Democrats. Then when the Democrats know that their party organ, the Des Moines Register, endorses the other side, that's like a punch to the gut. It really impacts their ability, their enthusiasm to go out this time. So I think Romney's going to win Iowa. I think our turnout is going to be strong, and as a result, I think he'll carry the state of Iowa.
Well, now, Doug, you're much better connected than I to the party machine. Are you seeing some internal polling that gives you encouragement on the words that you just spoke?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. What type of a margin are you seeing on the realistic polls?
I mean, it's close in Iowa right now, but what I'm seeing is anywhere from 3 to 5 points Romney's way.
Wow.
Okay. Now, I don't know if it's going to end up that way.
I heard 2 a few weeks back.
That's when it's appropriately weighted, so it's all going to depend on turnout. But my gut tells me, Tom, as I said earlier, we're more enthusiastic. The people that are negatively impacted by Obama's policies are the people that he needs to have turnout. He can have the most vaunted turnout program in the world, but when you're giving people 25% unemployment, they're not excited about turning out, and they're not gonna. And if they do turn out, a bunch of them aren't going to vote for you. So I think we're going to surprise a lot of people. I actually think that the election's not going to be as close as people think.
Well, I hope you're right. I have a cigar wager with our mutual friend Rob Tully.
Oh, you do? What's Rob's prediction?
Well, of course, this was made before the first debate, so I will.
Oh boy, you were a gutsy guy.
Yeah, I was a gutsy guy. He was very confident.
Those were the days of the wilderness.
Yes. We bet one on the nation. We bet one on Iowa. So
what kind of margin did you talk about?
Well, we just heads up.
I didn't think you were a betting man, though, Tom.
Well, on cigars, I have been known to bet on cigars, and I will get a very expensive one from our mutual friend Rob Tully if that prediction comes true.
I was going to ask which cigar you bet.
Well, the choice is the winner gets to choose the cigar of his choice.
Whoa!
And
your cigar club.
there are
That's pretty
some
expensive.
that are up there $20, $30 a stick that I wouldn't smoke paying for myself, but I will prevail on the barrister, the former head head of the Iowa Democratic Party.
And the Iowa trial lawyers, so he can afford it. Tom.
That's right. I don't worry about Rob ponying up for that. He talks about me being cheap, but I think that's pot calling the kettle black sometimes.
There you go. But no, I think it's good, and I think I was just in Ohio earlier this week, and I know there's a lot of talk about Ohio. We need to win Ohio. I'm convinced we're going to win that state. I talked to a number of people in Ohio. The early voting is strong, but frankly, Romney's doing well in the early voting. Particularly among young people, he's doing well. So I think he's closing very hard there. I think he's going to win that. I think he's going to win Florida. I think he's going to win Virginia. I think he's going to win Iowa. So I think this is going to be better than we might think.
Well, and along that line, I brought in, you asked me what was in the report I brought in, a couple of newest polls. Now, I understand that Gallup and Rasmussen are now back today starting to do their polling. They suspended for a few days. Yes.
Because of Sandy?
Yes. Because
What's Gallup got it at?
Well, I don't know where this one comes from. He just now restarted today, but there are two new polls, and I didn't pull the details. I just pulled the cover page. Wisconsin, which was thought just a few weeks out to be pretty safe Obama territory. Yeah. They come out with a poll now shows them dead even, 49-49.
Really?
Yes. Right there.
Wow. If we win Wisconsin, it's going to be a landslide.
It will be. Colorado, not that long ago to at least at the worst be leaning Obama.
I think Romney will win Colorado.
Colorado 50, Obama 47.
Yeah, I think we'll win Colorado.
Rasmussen Thursday, Romney 49, Obama 47. I'm sure it's a national poll. Mm-hmm. And Gallup says he's going to start again today.
And see, what's different about Gallup and Rasmussen is they actually they've got a turnout. They don't put their finger on the scale for Obama. They actually have a model that projects turnout the way it's likely to be, and that's why their numbers are this way.
Well, and see, this is the conversation. Even back even prior to the first debate, where it swung hard, Rasmussen was showing some encouraging signs, and Tully was telling me, he's full of beans, I said, well, didn't he win the polling award back in 2008?
He did.
Well, he doesn't know. Well, but I think these polls, and I was going to ask you a question. I don't quite understand this. We had some numbers out the other day where the early voting was thought by the general public to generally be in favor of the Democrats because they get the ground troops out and they get every nook and cranny they can to vote early. And yet they were saying that the early voting was favoring Romney. Can you explain to me how they would know that?
Well, I mean, the reason they would know that, you got absentee ballots, and you know who requested the absentee ballots, so you can tell which ones of those are Democrat voters, which ones of those are Republican voters. The difference in the margin is less than half what it was in 2008 in almost every state. And in Ohio, actually, we're winning among the early voters. If you look at some of the Gallup reports, it shows that Romney's doing quite well nationwide among early voters. So while there may be more Democrats taking out absentee ballots, the margin of that between Democrats and Republicans is nowhere near what it was in 2008, so we can't count on that margin. The reason why the Democrats do put such an emphasis on early voting, Tom, is because Democrats have less propensity to actually vote than Republicans do.
Right.
Republicans vote on Election Day. We win on Election Day, hands down. Always have.
And even did with McCain back in 2008. If it was just the votes cast in the state
of
Iowa,
Day,
McCain won.
He won. And he would win the country. What the Democrats do is they try to get people that wouldn't otherwise vote and try to bank them early because they won't turn out. What Republicans do is we try to focus on the swing voters. So people that wouldn't otherwise vote but will still be with us. And those are usually the swings. And those are we're turning out. Those are net margin for us. And I think it's a smarter strategy.
Do you think that the early voting 40 days out that we have in Iowa is an abuse of the system? Should we turn this back? The argument has been that we may have as many as 40% of our votes cast before the election day ever gets here.
I think we have a third now.
Yeah, we talked about Libya and some of the kind of things that have the propensity to pop up weeks or days out, and if so many of these people have already cast their vote. I had a woman in my office, will remain nameless, but one of our employees come up to me, and she had just heard about a few weeks ago about the Democratic Convention. A woman of some faith, and she didn't watch it closely enough, and she was told, and she didn't believe it, I had to assure her that it was true, that the Democrats, just like Peter, denied God 3 times. And even on the third round, their boos and their no's were much more resounding than the yeses, and yet they just bullied through them and went ahead and put God back in to satisfy some of the interests.
But clearly they didn't mean it.
Clearly they didn't mean it, and she seemed to be disconcerted enough, and yet she said, "Well, but I already voted." Now,
did she vote for Obama?
Yeah, she did.
Oh my.
Yeah, I know it's hard to believe that anyone in my office would actually vote for Obama, but I've got a few.
Well, that's part of your diversity program.
That's right. That's exactly right. We have my counselors are just about evenly split between the guys in the white hats and the black hats, but I'm trying to bring them along. Anyway, my point here is that this early voting put him in a position where major things happening were too late. Is this an abuse 40 days out?
Tom, I absolutely think it is. It's wrong. The purpose of a campaign is to put these two candidates in a pressure cooker and see how they respond over a period of time. And so what we ought to do is we ought to let them do that, and then at the point where there's on election day, you decide who weathered it better, who can best handle the job. 40 days, the purpose of absentee ballots was to deal with people who simply could not be there on that day because of an emergency or otherwise. It's not to allow for a campaign, for an election to occur 40 days long. I'll tell you, if we have time. No, we don't have time. I'll tell you an interesting story about that in a minute.
All right. Coming back, this is Tom Coates and Doug Gross. View from a Pew, 99.3 KTIA, powered by WebcastOneLive.com.
Tom, you had like 45 seconds still.
I do?
Yeah, you're
well, okay,
on.
I thought you said I was off at 34.
35.
35, all right.
Oh, so we had it early.
Now we made up for it because last time, guys, your amateur host got out late. I'm out early this time, so now we've got another 40 seconds.
Well, we can fill it. Here's the story.
This may look easy. It's not.
In the 2010 gubernatorial campaign in Iowa, Branstad had a strong lead early, and then Culver got in and really started decimating him with lots of negative attacks. The Democrats got the vote out early, did a lot of early voting. They helped Branstad win that race because actually Culver closed it at the end. It would have been closer than it was if they didn't have early voting.
Well, thank you, Doug. We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about that and some other things after the break. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Leach, owner, and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's got to be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
If you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? You can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
Well, once again, this is your amateur host at work here. I botched up the last break even worse than did the first one. We'll
I thought
try.
maybe you had to go to the bathroom, Tom. I didn't know what the deal was.
Went out late, and then I went out early, and maybe I'll be right on the next one. I'm going to try to improve this. Don't try this at home, ladies and gentlemen. It is harder than it looks. I am coming back to you on View from a Pew, substituting for J. Michael McCoy, 99.3 KTIA, powered by Webcast One, live.com. Anyway, we're back with Doug Gross, and Doug, we were talking about some things of interest to both of us. Now, you touched on the Branstad administration. I do want to move on to some of the Iowa situations.
Okay.
We've been focusing on national debates, and we could talk the rest of the hour easily on that, but I don't want to miss out on some of the dynamics in our own state. Our own state, again, is once again a focal point for national spotlight. We're one of the few battleground states, and if you're right, we'll squeak out a win for Romney. But we're being treated. I was out in San Diego last week, and I didn't see any presidential commercial. Now, there were some commercials for local races, but they're not getting what we're getting.
Oh, no.
If you're not in the battle states, you're not
I
seeing.
don't think Iowans realize that, but if you go, 9 states have had ads in it out of 50. That's it. And that's why, frankly, Romney is coming back in states like Minnesota, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, because Obama didn't demonize Romney in those states, and he's getting closer there, and that's why Romney went up with some ads in those states.
Well, I've also heard that since we've been hammered with ads on both sides, we're pretty much entrenched and hardened in our positions.
Yeah.
That some of these states that haven't been seeing some of the presidential ads have the ability to be moved.
And they are moving.
And so the
And we'll
ads,
have some surprises on election night.
yeah, they could pull out of Iowa. I think Iowa's pretty much done. Put all the resources into a state like a Wisconsin, like an Oregon, like a New Hampshire.
Pennsylvania. Michigan's close. It's within margin of error.
Right. I even heard Minnesota was getting close.
Yeah, our liberal neighbors, to Scandinavians to the north.
So, I mean, that does do a difference. Now, the Iowa races we had, and I thank God that Terry Branstad did step up when our state was in need. After 4 years of Culver, it was
total mismanagement.
Oh my Lord!
And you got to hand it to Governor Branstad. The state, I mean, how rapidly he's turned the state's financial picture around. I mean, they're in far stronger position they've been in probably decades.
Yeah.
He's done a really wonderful job
in a
with
short
regard to
period of time.
Very short period of time.
Very capable. Now, the one piece of this puzzle that he's missing to get some of the things like the corporate income tax structure and some of these things into line is the Iowa Senate. That is the fly in the ointment.
There's things Governor Branstad wants to do that need to be done for our state. I mean, that's why he ran again. He saw that things need to be done for us to be competitive and our kids to have a good life here in the future. We've got the highest corporate income tax in the country, highest than anywhere else. It's got to be changed.
And a nation that now with Japan dropping theirs has the highest corporate tax rates in the world.
Right. So you add both, and it makes us very uncompetitive. We have commercial property taxes that are as high as they are anywhere in the country. They've got to be changed. We have an education system that's got to be reformed. And the governor has attempted to do this. He's made proposals to do it. But what stopped it is that we were within one vote of having a majority in the Iowa Senate.
Or at least being one vote will bring us, one seat change would bring us even.
Right, will bring us even, and then what they'd have to do is
26-24 right now.
Right, the Democrats are in charge. Now, we need to win at least, looks like there are like 9 competitive seats out there right now. We need to win 4 of them. If we do, we're going to be in control. Tom, it looks to me like we're going to win 5, maybe 6.
I was going to ask you, what's the latest?
I've looked at the numbers around the state. I think the Democrats know this. Mike Gronstal has shifted all of his money, a lot of his money, to his own race to save his own hide, because he's only up by 1 point over Colonel Ann.
Wouldn't that be great?
I know. He's only up 1 point over Al Ringenberg on Council Bluffs, who's working his tail off.
He seems like a very impressive individual,
and he's got
too.
people really excited down there. He's done an awesome job, and a number of people have really been helping him and done a great job. So Mike's trying to save his own skin. In the meantime, a lot of his colleagues are going to go down in flames, and I think we're going to be at 26, maybe 27 votes in the Iowa Senate. What that means then, Tom, is we have the ability to make some of these changes that need to be made. And the other thing that means is that Iowa voters will have a chance to vote on a constitutional amendment with regard to gay marriage. Because Mike Gronstal has stood between giving Iowa voters a chance and not having a chance to vote on that. I think that'll change.
Well, and of course that's the Wiggins controversy right now that we're hearing commercials for and against.
I think that's a bigger issue just than gay marriage, though, Tom. I have a different perspective on that.
But that is that you're right.
Okay.
Tell us what you think about the Wiggins thing.
Well, I think the Wiggins matter. I mean, obviously people are concerned about the Varnum decision and what the court did, not just in the Varnum decision, but in the criminal law. They've really been expansive, much more expansive in protecting not the victims, but protecting the perpetrators. I mean, our criminal law is out of whack. So they've expanded the role of the Supreme Court clearly in lawmaking. But what you need to look at is the report card that Wiggins got from his own colleagues, from the people that appear before him. That report card said 72% approval. That's the lowest in history.
I thought it was 63.
I'm sorry. 60.
I think it was.
You're right. I'm sorry.
I think it's 63, which is the lowest they said in 50 years.
I was thinking Marcia Turnus.
Yeah.
Marcia
she was
Turnus
low, but
was
not
70.
this low.
You're right. And I don't know, when I went to school, if you got less than 70%, you flunked a test.
Yeah.
And this is among people that have to appear before him, that a lot of them are going to, just try to make him feel good. Tom, I think there's lots of reasons beyond just Varnum for people to vote against Wiggins, and I think it's likely he's not going to succeed.
Well, besides being the lowest rated Supreme Court justice in 50 years, he's also viewed as one of the most liberal and therefore activist judges. When you're a conservative judge, you're trying to properly interpret the Constitution. When you're a liberal activist judge, you are looking for ways around that.
But it's not just that either. I think one of the really big issues with Justice Wiggins is his temperament.
Must be.
People expect a judge to have an even temperament. I think a lot of people have seen the video of him interviewing people. He was chair of the Judicial Nominating Commission, was interviewing people that would be nominated to be on the Supreme Court after the past three went down. And there was one judge from Ames who he interviewed. He all but took off his head. It was just terrible. And a lot of people have experienced that. And so I think Justice Wiggins is probably not going to win for lots of reasons beyond just Varnum.
I hope you're right. And, of course, again, polls trying to shift the public opinion. The latest polls I saw showed that somebody had done a survey and that most people are going to vote for his retention. I'm skeptical of that one.
So am I. The irony of this, I think, is that one is I think there are a lot of people who say they might vote for him, but they probably aren't going to, because I think the word is out about what the situation is. But beyond that, there are three others that are up. Those are the three that the governor appointed to replace the people who voted out last time. I think they're going to be retained with overwhelming numbers. I think Iowans are smart folks and they can discriminate one from the other. The other is people say that, well, it's terrible if somebody would be not retained because that would interject politics. The Constitution, this whole merit selection process itself, provides for this mechanism for the people to put a check on the judiciary. This isn't extrajudicial. This isn't extra constitutional. This is the Constitution. Why? Because the people control at the end of the day, and they're supposed to. That's our method of government. Let's never forget that.
Who's the attorney that's gone on some of the talk shows to defend the position that we need to retain Wiggins? I'm trying to think of his name right now.
Well, it was a woman from the head of the bar up in
local fella, and
probably your friend Tully. I don't.
No, well, not Tully. It's another one. He's pretty good. He does an excellent job. I've heard him on some of the other talk show hosts, but he's got a real tough row to hoe when he says 63% is okay.
Yeah, obviously. None of us would have passed school if we'd have gotten 63%.
Well, a lot of your fellow barristers are saying, in essence, they word it artfully, but they're saying in essence that the Iowa people don't have a right to throw a guy off the Supreme Court, and that's patently false, of course.
Well, that's, as I said, that's what the Constitution provides. what it says is that, okay, if you're not going to get a right to vote to get who goes on, because in some states that's the way it works, then at least you ought to periodically get a right to vote on who goes off. And what I worry about is by focusing solely on Varnum, people will think that we're ejecting someone from the Supreme Court just because of one vote they made on a decision. I think it's much broader than that. It's a much bigger issue than that.
I agree with you, Doug, and I appreciate your perspective on this. We're going to our last break. This is Tom Coates.
You sure it's the right time?
View from a Pew, 99.3 KTIA, powered by WebcastOneLive.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
It's like they want to get hit.
Need a body shop?
Minor Wreck Express saves you time and money.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Come on now, let's reason together. The phone lines are open, and it's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
And once again, this is not J. Michael McCoy. This is Tom Coates coming to you from J. Michael McCoy's powerful mega chair and microphone here. This is View from a Pew, 99.3 KTIA. And my guest today is Doug Gross. I would like to take a bow that I took out that last break at about the right
You're
time.
You're right on. Man, they can't say you don't learn, Tom.
We got a little sidetracked in the last conversation, but I want to come back with Doug and wrap up the issue of the Iowa races. Now, Doug, you've predicted that we're going to come out with maybe a couple of seats to spare. The Jacobs seat, that situation. Can you outline that situation for the
Jacobs seat?
What's the lady's name that died?
Pat Ward.
Pat Ward. I'm sorry, I'm not talking about Jacobs.
Yeah.
Pat Ward's seat, and I don't know. I mean, that was.
Well, we just found out today that John Ward, her husband, is going to announce he's going to be a candidate for that race.
I'd heard some rumors to that effect. I was going to ask you. I want the latest.
Yeah.
So he is going now. Is this an appointment?
Well, no. The way this works, Tom, is there's really no vote on Pat's seat in this election. What happens is both parties will set a nominating convention after the election. Will nominate a candidate for that seat, and then there'll be a special election to put that person in place on December 11th.
Who will vote on that election?
People in that Senate district.
Okay, so they will have a special day.
Yes, December 11th. That'll be hotly contested, because if, for example, the Republicans end up at 26, as I indicated is certainly possible, that race could decide whether or not they retain full control or have to share control.
That would be right. There will be on the ballot, but it's going to be a ballot that will not count. Presumably the Democrats will still go for Desmond.
We haven't heard. I'm hopeful. Frankly, I know John Ward. He's an outstanding guy.
Is he good?
Oh, yeah, he's a great guy. And I think
what does he do for a living?
He's an attorney. He was the head of the Sullivan Ward. Actually, the firm was named about him. And I think he's just recently retired. But and he's an outstanding guy. I've worked with him over the years, a great attorney.
It's got to be quite a loss, though, to lose your wife.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know she'd been fighting it for a while, but must not have expected that it would bring her down this suddenly.
Pat was an awesome person. I don't know how well you knew Pat.
Not well, but I know she's well thought of, and that's got to be a loss. So for him to step up and say, I will run in her... Take up her seat.
And he's doing it in her memory. I think it's part of it helps him with closure, I suspect. But I also think it's great politically because I think John will be a great candidate there for us. I think he'll win that.
Okay. And it is a Republican district. I know Desmond a little bit. Met him a few times.
I don't know him. What's he like?
A business guy. Sharp, makes a nice appearance, very well spoken. So they could, black gentleman, they could do worse than having Desmond up there. But if we get a good candidate, that's one the Republicans should retain.
We should retain it.
Yeah.
We absolutely should retain that.
Yeah, because I think that even the Democrats thought that Desmond had virtually no chance if she
Pat would have won easily.
That's right. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, so and at that point, then what are his top objectives? You talked about him before. Let's hit him again. What will he do once he gets the House and the Senate?
Okay, number one will be reforming the commercial property tax system in the state. Again, our businesses pay more in commercial property taxes than almost any other businesses in the country, so he's going to reform that. I think he also wants to do general tax reform, Tom, on income taxes, both for personal as well as for corporations. Our income taxes are still way too high. One of the things he's floated out is the idea of a flat tax for income taxes. I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but that's one thing he's floating. So he's looking at that. I think he's also going to be focusing on education reform.
Got to.
He's absolutely committed that if we're going to succeed, he's bringing a lot of businesses and a lot of investment into Iowa. Just today he announced another $1.2 billion worth of investment into Iowa, and there's more on the way. But we've got to have educated workers to fill those spots if we're going to succeed. So he wants to get education reform done as well. I would expect those would be the two primary points of his interest in the next year. There's an old saw that says the governor can do anything they want, they just can't do everything they want. So I think he's going to try to keep his agenda focused.
All right. A couple of last topics. Recent proposal, $150 million Ankeny Casino. Is it going anywhere?
I've heard that it's dead.
Okay.
I've heard that there was a public outcry in Ankeny. I mean, I think what happened up there is they put it on the agenda for the city council on like 4:57 of the day before they were going to vote on it, which there's a requirement that you have 24 hours, so they had 24 hours and 3 minutes. I think there was a large outcry among the public about, one, how that was done, and two, whether or not this made sense for Ankeny. And so as a result, we've had councilmen, the mayor, pull back on that. I've heard it's dead.
Last point I want to cover with you. A few weeks ago, Mac and I had a listener that sent us a lengthy email, and we had him in. His name was Roger. Committed Christian fella, did not think he could vote for Romney because Romney was not, quote, conservative enough on some of his principles. How would you address the Christian audience, which is largely what the audience that we're talking to today is made up of? What would you say to the Christian that's on the fence, says, I'm not worried about his Mormon faith as much, but he is flip-flopped on life and gay marriage and things like that? How would you address those issues?
I know Mitt Romney personally. I mean, I was his chair in 2008, and I have never worked with a candidate for public office who has any higher personal morals than Mitt Romney, or has lived his life in a more pristine way than Mitt Romney. I mean, take a look at his family, take a look at how he treats people in need. I mean, he's an outstanding person.
Well, look at his 30% giving to church and charities.
Right. I mean, and compare
who gives that kind of money?
Compare that to Biden.
Yeah, well, zero.
I mean, who basically gives nothing.
And up until a few years ago, Obama only gave a couple percent too.
He's a giving man.
All of us to shame.
He's a good Christian man. And I don't know about you, but after Bill Clinton and what we've been through over the years, and raising kids in that kind of an environment, I want a good Christian man in that office.
New sex scandal on the horizon here just popped up today. Did you see it on the Democrat senator?
Which one, Tom?
This is Bob Menendez, Democrat out of New Jersey.
Oh, there's plenty on him.
New sex scandal.
Oh, is that right? There's plenty there. On the U.S. Senate, Tom, I'm hearing that we probably are not going to take control of the U.S. Senate. I hope that's not true, but that's what I'm hearing.
I hadn't asked you that. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you're mistaken.
I hope I'm wrong, too.
How close will that be, do you think?
Maybe within 3 or 4, but I don't know that we've got some bad breaks, is what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing the numbers don't look good for us in terms of taking control.
Missouri, are we going to win Missouri?
I don't think so. And then in the Iowa, for Congress here in Iowa, I think we're going to hold control of the U.S. House. In Iowa, it looks like we're likely going to split. We'll win the 2 western districts. Latham will win. Watham's up very comfortably now.
Good.
That looks like he ran a strong race. He's a good man. He'll be great for this area.
We had him in for an interview a couple weeks ago.
Steve King is going to win by double digits over Christy Vilsack. The other 2 races are still close, so if Mitt Romney improves his margins in eastern Iowa, they could have a chance, but right now they're not ahead.
Well, Doug, and I appreciate you coming in today, and especially given that I got the command myself without Mac.
Well, I try to help you through here, Tom.
You have, and this is not the first time. So,
Tom, it's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Doug. And again, this is Tom Coates subbing in for J. Michael McCoy. It's been my pleasure to have Doug Gross on today. View from a Pew, 99.3 KTIA, powered by WebcastOneLive.com.